Okay, welcome to Coach's Corner, episode 37.
Stacking them.
With Justin and Ethan. I am Coach Justin.
And I'm Coach Ethan.
And in case you don't know who we are, we've been trainers for 20 years each. Everything from gym floor trainers and gyms, obviously gym floor, to working with people with nutrition. We actually went to massage school together.
That's right.
13 years ago.
Say yeah, at least.
And we've just kind of done it all, fitness, nutrition. Currently, I work, my business is online, building weight loss programs for people across the country. Ethan has a studio here in Los Angeles where he works with people. So this project that we're doing here is just to, come together to try to help cut through the noise.
That's right.
And give you guys the most streamlined, no nonsense advice to help just get you to where you want to be a little bit quicker, maybe.
I would say so.
So today, we're going to be doing an episode on how to get six-pack abs.
The thing we all want.
Super clickbaity.
Yep.
But it's the old ham and garlic fable. You familiar with the ham and garlic fable,
I
Ethan?
believe so, but remind me.
So a dog has fleas, and back in the olden days before flea meds, it was believed that if you fed the dog garlic, it would help get the fleas off of them. But turns out dogs don't want to eat garlic.
No.
But they do like ham.
Okay, yes.
So if you wrapped the garlic in a piece of ham, the dog would eat it. In other words, you give the people what they want in order to give them what they need.
Yes.
And so when we clickbait you and say how to get six-pack abs, we're going to tell you how. We're going to break it down for you.
Yeah, of course. Well,
We've both been there a few times in our life. Ethan and I have both been single-digit body fat levels multiple times through our lives. So we understand what it takes. But we're also going to tell you the reality of that situation as well, and maybe what pitfalls to look out for, and make sure that your intentions are in the right spot.
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it? Where are your abs at these days, Ethan?
I wouldn't say, they're visible, but I think they're not the sharpest they've ever been, that's for sure. But I think, they're there. There's some definition.
Nice.
I think I'm probably at like 14% body fat, 14, 15.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's solid.
That's
I think if you were to look, I think most people would look at me and be like, oh, you definitely have abs or,
Right.
So.
It's a spectrum. There's like abs around 14, 15% where it's like, for men at least, for women that might be more like 20%, where, if you're 14, 15%, like, you can see.
Yeah, you kind of see what's going
visible
on.
abs. If you sit down, there's definitely going to be a little handful of pooch.
I got the little something. I can pinch it.
But I think just like a healthy walking around normal weight, 15 is pretty solid, especially if you have like a good amount of muscle mass on you.
Yeah.
15 can look pretty damn good if you're built up a little bit.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I just want to start with like, why does someone want a six pack?
Because it's sexy.
It is.
I think that's predominantly it's has such an aesthetic appeal in our culture.
Yep.
Whether that's true for people looking at a six pack or not, it's just, I think it is the gold standard.
Yeah.
Of particularly for men, but I also think that like women with a nice tight abdomen are also considered, it's an appealing feature. But I think, the cliche sense of a six pack is geared towards men. And I think it is the gold standard of someone being in shape or considered to be sexy. I don't think anybody on men's, Forbes sexiest man or whatever doesn't have like an ab shot involved.
Totally.
In a way.
It is iconic in that sense where you can't really, like, there's only so much, like, fitness cred one can have with, like, a beer belly. You know what I mean? Or even just any sort of belly. It's like that six-pack is, you know what it is? It just symbolizes that either A, I think from, like, a female to male perspective, maybe either A, that person has like good genetics and therefore might be a better mate in some regard. Then from like a male to male perspective, there is this like respect because you had to work for that hard. And like there's something like maybe like, oh, I wanna understand what you've done.
Right.
Or I'll listen to you because you've accomplished something that I want or I'm interested in, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that it's just very symbolic in a lot of ways.
Yeah, because I think even if you're not like super jacked and you're just somebody that has a low body fat and your abs can be seen, like if you're a guy and you're still even kind of like maybe skinny or lanky, but you take the shirt off and you got that washboard going on.
Yeah, no one looks at your arms anymore.
Then
Everyone's
it's
just
like
looking
it's just
straight
it
at your
can't be.
abs.
It doesn't matter because it's like the abs are still popping.
It's so true. You actually don't
obviously,
need.
Yeah, if you're jacked, if on top of that, great, sure. But like if you come in with the washboard, you're definitely gonna people.
You're gonna get more attention.
Yeah, but people are just gonna be like, okay, oh well.
At least that's what Ethan's gonna do.
That's what.
Well, excuse me. Adjust your monocle.
Exactly.
But I think the reality is, and this might be obvious for some folks listening to this, it might be not so obvious for folks who have never achieved it and just kind of like imagine what life will be like once they achieve 10% body fat or whatever. But the reality is that it's very unlikely and it's not reasonable to think that unless you have like 1% of the 1% genetics,
Yeah.
or you're on steroids, which is another bag of worms. But assuming you're doing it the right way, you're natural, you're lifting, you're trying to do everything right, man, is it hard to maintain 10% body fat year round.
It's very difficult. And for those listening, it's about at 10% or less where you start to get that kind of very stereotypical movie star defined six pack where you're just like, oh, look at that.
Yeah, like you can start seeing abs around 15.
Yep.
These are all general.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Depends on how stocky you are, how bulbous your muscles are. There's a lot of things that go into it.
But generally.
15% for men, 20% for women. You're gonna have a pretty nice looking midsection at least.
Yep.
Anything below 12, I would say 10 to 12%. I would say pretty visible abs at that point.
For sure.
For men. For women, that might look more like 18%.
Yeah.
And then once you get below 10, you would be what we would all consider pretty shredded at that point. Like 8% to 10%, you're pretty fucking shredded.
You're very lean.
And now bodybuilders, though, they're walking on stage 4 or 5%.
Yeah, that's
which is just for that one day, and then they go and eat afterwards, and it's all gone. Don't think that that's realistic.
No, it's not realistic.
But I think that it's a worthwhile pursuit. I really do believe that it is, because you learn a lot about yourself when you're trying to accomplish this. You have, everything has to go under the microscope, like your training, your sleep, your nutrition. Like if you don't genetically just walk around at 8% body fat, but you have to go through a journey. You have to lose 20 pounds of fat. Yeah, even if you're 15%, I mean, you could do the quick math. Like let's say you're a 200-pound guy.
Yep.
And you're 15% body fat.
Yep.
Okay, so what does that look like? What's 5% of 200? That's 10 pounds, right? Yeah. And so you'd have to lose at least 10 pounds of body fat.
Of just pure body fat.
Pure body fat, right? And that was going to require you to really examine your lifestyle. Like, are you going out too much? Are you unconscious? Are you unconsciously snacking at night and not thinking about it? Anyway, so a lot goes into it. So I do think it's a worthwhile pursuit. But I think that when everybody reaches it, and I'm super guilty of this too, I'll get shredded, and then it's just so funny how these old familiar habits and patterns just start sneaking back in. Next thing you know, you're like, whoa, what happened? It doesn't feel like that much changed in my life, but all of a sudden I'm 15 pounds heavier, and
got a little bit of the little chub again. I mean, it was definitely, I was on a mission at the beginning of the year, and I definitely pulled 3% off of me, and I've kept some of it off, but it is funny because I was like, oh, I'm gonna definitely take me down. I want to get to 12 maybe or 10, or just I really wanted to get in there and get super shredded because it's just been a while, and I definitely had weighed the most for me and had the least appealing body composition for my personal journey so far. And so I was like, oh, I'm gonna get in to that point. I definitely did some good, and then all of a sudden kind of just noticed that trains just kind of slowing down.
It takes a real strong will
to keep it up every day.
So, more of the story here, I think, is that it's a worthwhile pursuit, but don't get it twisted. Because whatever happiness you think you're going to achieve by getting to, that body fat level percentage, or, getting visible abs, you still got to bring yourself with you.
Yeah.
Now, will it boost your confidence? Will it make you, will there be a pride in like, hey, I had to work for this? Absolutely. That's why I think it
Yes.
is a worthwhile pursuit.
I think,
But,
yeah, getting into the gym will definitely boost your confidence. But if you're gonna go ahead, finish
you
your
know,
sentence.
but trust me, like I know a lot of fitness models. I know a lot of fitness influencers who are shredded.
Yeah,
And guess what? They're not all that happy.
yeah,
You know, because whatever baggage they currently have, you know, accomplishing some like external goal isn't going to fix that.
yeah. The aesthetic goal doesn't do it. Yeah, like if you're shy and you have trouble talking to potential mates or people that you are looking to, link up with in some capacity, and you think that getting a six pack is going to be some shoe in where all of a sudden you have people knocking at down the door, or you go to a party or a pool party and you have some unfounded confidence to talk to somebody that you find appealing, like it's not going to be the case. Like there's a very good chance that you will be that same shy person as like an example, right?
Yeah.
And it definitely gives you the journey will shape you without question. And I do think going to the gym in particular is going to be something that will create confidence in an individual and definitely can make them feel more powerful. But yeah, to Justin's point of like the shadows that we carry don't just disappear from our shiny six-pack abs.
No, they certainly don't. And I think depending on the person, it can either like bring out like even more insecurities because now you're so fixated on your body and all you're thinking about it.
Yeah.
It could make you, I mean, like that, that's the thing is like almost every bodybuilder could look in the mirror and be like, I look like shit today. But for the rest of us, we're like, holy fuck, dude.
You're like, whoa,
you look insane.
Yeah, you're massive. You're shredded.
But they're looking at it from such a different like they're looking at and it's so relative to them. And that happens, I think, on every scale for everybody.
Yeah.
They're missing the forest to the trees, so to speak. They're so focused on one tree, they're missing the entire forest, and like, they're like, nah, but like the one peck just doesn't, it sits a little bit lower. It's like, yeah, but dude, no one's thinking about that one. Like they're looking at you and just like the whole thing,
Yeah,
like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, but on the other hand, it could also, once you start getting positive attention and feedback, depending on the person, could be a really great thing for them, in their life to like finally get any sort of external validation.
Yeah.
I think people, I don't know, I've started to believe that, physical attractiveness is so much like it's less to do with someone's face, I think, and more to do with just like everything they present, like their whole package in a lot of ways. I think especially for men, like you'd be surprised, but just like growing a little stubble and getting in shape and getting a good haircut for men maybe could like, even if you're like not even like a handsome guy, like you could be like a pretty ugly guy, but you just get in shape and like get a good haircut. Like you could like all of a sudden you're probably gonna like get a girlfriend in no time at all.
Yeah, and and there's so much. I mean, I think without question you can look at somebody just walking by and be like, oh, they're attractive or not. But so much of it is the body language, how you present yourself. Are you funny? I mean, I think attractiveness is really a mixed bag. And again, you can look at somebody in a magazine or a picture and be like, oh, yay or nay. And if they have six-pack abs, maybe
Swipe left,
You might
swipe right.
exactly.
It's a magazine. It's not a dating app. Swipe.
Wait a second. But I also think, and I think in the sense of fulfillment and happiness, right? So if there's this venture to go out to acquire this goal of six-pack abs and therefore have a better life, so to speak, it comes with the price. There's going to be a lot of sacrifice. There's going to be an actual expression of your day-to-day, which might not make you all that happy.
Yep.
That in a sense, just my life just might have a heaviness to it or a burden of responsibility that when you arrive, you might be like, oh yeah, I'm shredded, but like, man, that sucked. Like I didn't like that.
Yeah, or
I couldn't go out. I couldn't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Like, it's like if you have to watch because fundamentally, getting that lean requires a certain diligence and a certain almost militant kind of approach to your life. And so that might mean that certain activities are off limits or old habits might be gone, or coping mechanisms might be gone. And fundamentally, like, if a coping mechanism's gone and you kind of have to look in the mirror, that might be a good thing in a bigger picture. But at the same time, it also might be hard to not have your coping mechanism in place. And, all of a sudden your life's just being stirred up. And yeah, it's just a lot.
It's a lot. I mean, I remember when I was in my 20s, I was hanging out with this guy, and he was like a real model. He wasn't just like the fake LA, pose for some rando photographer that no one's ever heard of. But like, he was actually like legit, like doing like big publications, being flown to New York and Paris. He was like a legit male model. And yeah, I mean, like, his career was basically dependent on his abs. That was it. And so he did a really good job of not withdrawing socially, because I think a lot of people would just not even go anywhere, not even try to hang out, because the temptation is just too strong. So in his defense, he did a good job.
Yeah.
But I remember hanging out with him, going to a bar, and he would like drink one light beer, and then it was just water. Everyone else is like eating burgers and fries and putting like 4 or 5 beers down. We were like in our 20s.
Yeah, of course. That's what
And he would have like one light beer and maybe like some chicken tenders, and then he'd be done and just drinking water and like it's for the discipline and the willpower, and then to your point, the sacrifice.
Yeah.
But I guess he's a little bit of a different example, because that was actually his career, and I think we would all be so lucky to like be flown around because of how hot we were all the time.
Right. Exactly. Like free hotel stays and take a picture and post it on Instagram or something.
Totally. But I mean, I think just to extrapolate of the sacrifice. And so for a normal person, it'd be even harder, because there's not the financial reward for it. It's just, this is just a decision that he or she has made to have this figure. And it's like, yeah, you have to really ask yourself, is the trade-off worth it? Because, if you enjoy going to happy hour, if you enjoy a couple dinners out every week, if you enjoy takeout, like, you're probably going to have to get rid of that if you want that body fat level percentage.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, are you ready to count calories? Not everybody wants to do it. I mean, I think it's a good practice, but like, are you really ready and willing to get nitty and gritty every day? All the time,
Yeah. And it takes a lot longer than you think too. Like, one more caveat I will say, because I've gone through this journey, and like, my old mentor told me everyone is fatter than they think they are. This is before I even started carbon and doing my coaching. He's like, you think you need to lose 10 pounds? It might be more like 30. Because it's like, I just want to lose quick 10, like lean out. It's like, I bet you could lose 10 and you wouldn't even notice a difference.
Yeah.
Because the first 10, 3/4 of it's probably just water weight anyways.
Right.
I was 215. So actually just recently, so I just did a 6-month bulk, got way too fat, hated it, like did a bulk for way too long.
Yep.
And I went from like 195 to 212. Now, unless you're on steroids, for most people, if you put on 25 pounds, I bet you 15 of it's fat.
Yes,
more.
Yeah, it's going to be
might be more
fat. Yeah, there'll be some lean mass in there for sure.
For sure. But and so then now I'm like 5 months into a cut, and I've pulled off almost 20 pounds. So I'm like 195. But it's been way longer than I thought. And I was thinking at 215, when I was 215, I was like, okay, let me just get down to 200. I'll be shredded.
Right, 15 pounds.
So 195 now, 5 pounds more than I thought.
Yeah.
And I'm still like just finally starting to see the first little like flicker of abs
that you want, right? That you're like, ooh.
18 to 20 pounds later.
So wild, dude.
I'm just finally, and I'm just like, fuck, man. So that whole bulk after you've built and cut, maybe I'll net out 2 or 3 pounds of muscle after all that.
Yep.
And so it takes a lot longer than you think. You probably have more body fat on you than you think.
It's true.
And as you get lighter and as you start burning calories, your body does absolutely require less food to function than it did when you were heavier. And so you have to keep adjusting calories downward to compensate for this drop in metabolic rate. I was watching a video with Dr. Mike Israetel, and he was interviewing another PhD guy. He was saying that if you lose 20 pounds, that could actually lower your metabolism by 25%.
What? Wow.
They're seeing a 25% reduction in metabolic rate after a 20-pound loss.
That's crazy.
Or I think he said 10% body mass reduction. So if you're 200 pounds, that would be 20 pounds. But so 10% of your total body size reduction lowers metabolism by 25%. Give or take. Everybody's a little bit different, but on average, that's what they're seeing.
That's intense.
Right? So it's like, so you're hungry, and then as you get smaller, you have to actually eat less food. It's like so it takes a real strong willpower to see it all the way to, like, maybe for women 15%, for men 10%. Like, it takes a real drive.
It really does
to get there.
Yeah. That's a wild statistic.
Yeah, and then when you get there, you got to maintain it, or else what the fuck was the point of the whole thing?
Well, and that's, oh man, it could go, like you were saying, it goes so quick. It's so easy to rejoice or just be like, all right, well, summer's over, or whatever the reason you chose to do it. Once you arrive, it's like the diligence does not go away.
Yeah, and it's bulking season again.
Yeah,
and then you just lose it all. But you gotta be careful, man. Like the cloaked dagger of bulking, man. It can be real.
It's excuse to eat ice cream.
That's what got me, because I'm like, all right, I'm like so lean and thin now. Yeah, I want to bulk up, and then it's like, it seduces you, and then you think, yeah, I'm just gonna bulk. That makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's what people do. 6 months later, you've gained all the weight back that you lost. You're fatter than you were when you started, and all this while you thought you were doing something positive for yourself by bulking, when really you just blew it. And now you're starting from square one again. You got to go through another 6-month fat loss cycle. You're like, fuck.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But anyway, so.
Well,
I would. Go ahead.
I was going to ask you. So that all being said, though, like, how do you do it as someone who has walked the path?
So if we want to get like nuts and bolts on it, it's going to be very difficult to go all the way. Now, you could probably get to 15% body fat by just making better food choices and increasing your activity and cutting out sugary drinks and snacking, by just kind of just generally, if you're a healthy guy, you could probably get to 15% by just generally making good food choices. If you're a healthy woman, you could probably get to 20% by just doing better. Hit your 10,000 steps, work out a few days a week, eat single ingredient foods for the most part, limit the takeout, limit the sugary drinks, and you'll get in pretty decent shape.
I would say so, yeah. Get some good sleep.
But that next bit, it's like they say, like, when the job is 90% done, congratulations, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Because that next 10% of the work is going to be harder than the first 90 was. Mm-hmm. And so getting to 15, I think, is great. You'll be healthy. You'll look great in a t-shirt, all that fun stuff. But to get to 10%, which I think is give or take a couple of percentage points where you want to land to see, like, wow, that dude is fit, or that girl is very fit. Then you really have to take it to the next level, and you got to start measuring your food.
Yeah.
It's gonna be very difficult to ensure that you are in a proper calorie deficit, especially as you get smaller. Remember, if you lose 10%, so I just lost 10% of my body fat or my body mass.
Yeah.
So that means theoretically my metabolism now is 25% less than what it was
potentially
just a few months ago. So what does that mean? That means that instead of 2,700 calories, I had to cut it down to 23, which sucks. Sucks. Because my appetite is still up there.
Oh, yeah.
It's not, my appetite and hunger hormones haven't adjusted to my metabolism. They're still up at 215.
Yeah.
So that step one is you really got to measure that food out so you can just guarantee yourself that sweet spot of about a 500 calorie deficit per day.
Yeah.
That is pretty universally what's recommended. You'll lose weight faster if you go into like 1,000 calorie deficit.
Right.
But it's almost so it's so much harder by order of magnitude that the likelihood that you're going to stick with it just diminishes down to nothing.
Yeah, it's the sustainability is just going to go out the window.
Right.
Like once you start getting into a deficit, 30%, 40%, it's just you're going to crash and burn.
Like, yeah, you'll see the scale move every day, but then you're going to it's just this stress fatigue, the everything is just going to hit you.
Yeah, you're gonna be cranky and just cortisol all the time.
Can't think straight. You're not going to be sleeping
I was
well.
gonna
So
say
there's just
exactly,
all
not
these
gonna be
negative
sleeping well.
things start compounding on themselves.
Performance in the gym is gonna go down. without
Totally.
question.
You're going to start losing a lot of muscle mass. That was another big thing too, is like, anything below 500 calorie deficit per day,
Yeah.
you start burning through muscle tissue because you can't train hard. Your body's like, we get rid of all this stuff that's requiring calories.
Yep.
So 500 calorie a day is the sweet spot. So, it's very simple math. You just can Google how many calories does my body burn? Just Google that and a calculator will pop up and you just enter your age, height, weight, activity level. It'll give you a decent little estimation, which I think is a good starting point at least.
Yeah, it's a generally accurate.
And then you just pull 500 from that,
And
so
then,
if your metabolic rate if you, throughout the day is 2,500, which is very average, then eat 2,000 and you're probably going to be just fine. But you really got to make sure it is 2,000 because other studies have shown on average people are 50 to 100% wrong in their calorie tracking.
100% off.
Yeah. You think you're eating 1,200?
Yeah.
And we all know the women out there who are like, I only eat 1,200 calories a day. And they're like 180 pounds. You're like, I think you might be missing a couple days here.
Right.
Sorry, I don't mean to sound mean, but
No, but it's just the fact of the matter.
but
yeah,
it's too long.
It's the truth though. It's that without a food scale and without counting every calorie and food logging, you just don't have the accuracy on your numbers. And I think to reach that specificity of the goal we're talking about, you have to get that specific and you have to be consistent with it day in and day out. And you can't just kind of like shoot from the hip and like, oh, I'll eat a salad or I'll just like eat a little bit less. It might put you in a deficit, but I think like you were saying, to that last leg of the journey is going to require the true accuracy, which is only going to come from having your macros set and measuring out your food.
And I think this is where like being smart, it's like, it's so crazy. So Ethan and I are both turning 40 this year, and we've been doing this for forever, But I remember like in our 20s, we were both probably like, remember that little handheld thing?
Oh, yeah.
It would say we were like 6%, 8%. I'm sure it was off by a few, but we were very lean.
Yeah.
And we never tracked. In fact, we tried to eat as much as we could. It's just so funny to just like, man, if I knew then what I know now, because now at 40, it is harder. A 40-year-old's body doesn't want to release fat like a 25-year-old's does.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit harder, but like this is where you just got to be a little bit more sophisticated on your food choice, because hunger management is the name of the game.
Yeah.
Like if you're starving all the time because you're making really poor food choices that just fly through you, like you're drinking your calories, you're burning through all your calories and fats and not leaving any room for like starches and lean proteins.
Yeah,
like you're gonna be
fiber.
you're gonna be starving, and it's gonna make it very difficult. So like having 3 squares a day that are like between 400 and 600 calories that are just like 10 grams of fiber in each one of those plates, veggies, fruits, lean protein just stacked. So it's like hard to get the whole plate down.
Yeah, you're like eating the volume. It's like, oh man, I'm still chewing on this plate of food.
Like that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want meals that actually feel difficult to get through, but you've already done the math, and so you know that meal is only 400 or 500 calories. It just looks like a lot of food.
Right.
And that's the secret. And then you can just kind of backfill your calories in with like bars or shakes. But 3 meals like that are 400 to 600 calories, are just a mound of veggies and lean protein. That's how you're going to feel satisfied as you descend body fat down to body fat hell.
Right, down into the bowels of the ship.
And so you gotta understand your calories. Don't cut more than 500 a day off of your total daily energy expenditure. Don't do intense cardio. That would be another recommendation that I would give. Like avoid the boot camps, avoid the sprints. Save that for when you're eating at maintenance or when you're eating a little bit of a surplus. Then your body can handle it.
It's just too stressful.
It's too stressful and it triggers too much appetite.
Yeah.
You really go do a boot camp class, you're fucking starving afterwards. And it's going to be very difficult to only eat 2,000 calories if you've just kicked your own ass. And by the way, the appetite surge from a boot camp versus how many calories that class actually burned is not worth worth it.
Not for the calorie exchange. And if aesthetically, you probably would get more benefit from just doing some concerted weight training to look a certain way, to fill yourself out more than boot camp will make you fit. It's good stuff. But in terms of if it's an aesthetic goal, you probably just get more benefit from.
It's not, you're not giving your body any real reason to keep muscle on you.
Yeah.
And so, it's like spend your time doing, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week, 2 or 3 reps close to failure, hit 10,000 steps a day. It burns the same amount of calories as a boot camp does, but triggers no appetite or very little. And it's actually very recovering. And then you just focus on your food.
Let's focus on the food.
Just focus on the food. And like honestly, and it keeps sodium levels kind of at bay, because that can be a real mind fuck if you're eating the right amount of food, but they're just loaded with sodium or whatever, and you're just not losing any weight. Your body's just holding on to water. So that can be difficult. But that's really the secret. It's like good food choice, 500 calorie to deficit. I'll add one more thing to that of just like get as close as you can to about a gram of protein per pound. So if you're 180 pounds, 180 grams of protein, easy math.
Yep.
And that'll help keep you full, satisfied, abundance of amino acids, so your body can maintain muscle tissue as you burn body fat.
Yeah, because I think sometimes people don't even realize is that everybody has a six pack. Like the shape of the muscle is inherently that shape. You just have to be lean enough in order to see it. But I do want to also say on the back end of that is that actually doing some hypertrophy for your abs or asking your abs to grow through concerted abdominal exercises will also kind of come in from the back end, because obviously the more bulbous a muscle is, the more it'll push up against whatever degree of fat, stretching the fat out. So fundamentally you have to reduce the body fat, but you take the body fat you have right now, and if you made your bicep twice as big, it would stretch against that body fat and thin it out. As well as, even though we all have that six-pack shape, they can grow. They can become more bulbous in 3D, so to speak. And so I do think that if this is a goal that you're looking to do, it's not just about being lean, but actually having some type of hypertrophy training for your abs is going to be of benefit. It's a smaller slice of the pie, no doubt, but all things said and done, the abs will look that much better once you get lean. And I also just think that it can't be, if we're talking about masterful six-pack abs, you got to get some concerted training. Masterful abs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. And that's interesting, because I think a lot of people would make the mistake of thinking they just got to train their abs harder.
Yeah.
And that's actually not, it's like anything. It's like it's diminishing return. So once you've kind of hit the quota of about 10, 15 sets per week, it's not a matter of training harder anymore. It's all the other things we just talked about.
Yeah.
But with that being said, to your point, I think that if you just tack on a few sets to failure at the end of every workout, just pick a different ab exercise every time you work out, and just do 3 sets to failure of it. So if you lift, even if you're only lifting 3 times a week, that's still 9 sets to failure. And remember, even when you're doing squats and lunges and bench press and pull-ups, your abs are working.
Oh, 100%.
So they're always on like an isometric level. But then just to bring it a little extra hypertrophy, man, just 3 sets of Bosu ball stretch crunches.
I was going to say, if you know something with progressive like you do a stretch crunch on a Bosu ball and then use a little 2.5 pound plate on your chest and a 5 pound plate on your chest, and keep it simple, but follow the tried and true methods of a progressive overload and a plan. I think you'd be surprised, because also a lot of people skip abs. Like I just noticed people skip abs.
It's a lot of well-respected people skip abs. They're just like,
and it's true, like they're getting worked all the time, but I do think that if we're looking really for that pop when you take the shirt off, you have to have some concerted ab training. Doesn't have to be crazy, but you just have to have something in there.
For sure. Yeah. I that's all I do is I'll just at the end of each workout just pick a different one. Bench sit-ups, stretch Bosu ball, crunches, reverse crunches off the bench is one of my faves.
So good.
Sometimes just some good old-fashioned V-ups, are good. But yeah, just mix and match. You don't have to get as sophisticated with your programming as you would with other body parts, but just get something in there, a few days a week, a few sets to failure, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah, it goes a long way.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go, team. So go get those 6-packs.
Do it.
Send us pictures before and after so we can take credit for it. And, let me know in the comments how it goes for you, if you've achieved it and how you feel after accomplishing it. And if
Was
it's
it worth
something
it?
Yeah, was it worth it? That'd be fun to know.
Yeah.
All right, team. So that was episode 37 of Coach's Corner. We're getting there.
We're doing it.
We're more professional by the week, damn it.
That's right.
All right. Check you guys later. Peace out.
Peace.